let's get started. I'm reading Evelyn Underhill's book on mysticism. It's so amazing. This is video number 2. The sun's setting, I'm at the ocean. I didn't even take my skates off yet because I want to start before the sun goes down. If you guys know any of my other videos. My name's Dr. Cheryl Meyer. I'm a psychologist in my day job and a mom, and I like educating people. I went to school for 9 years to get my doctorate, and I just like educating people, and I study the spiritual path because I see ourselves as souls here in a physical body, and I want to stay balanced, so I try to do my exercise and be outside and eat healthy and all that stuff, but I also think it's important to sharpen our mind and to grow in our understanding. It says above anything, get wisdom. In the Proverbs, it says that. I'm trying to take this out without... Hopefully that didn't... Okay, good. I forgot to take my phone out of the case so I could put it on the stand. Let's see the sky for a second. I got a stand finally to make this steady. I like just coming out in nature with nothing but this camera, and my skates. Anyway, all right, let's get started. I have a bookmark to where we were. If you're on Instagram, you'll only see the first 15 minutes of this because they keep changing what's allowed, and that's all that's allowed there right now. And so, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would appreciate that, because then there's going to be a playlist for this, and you'll find everything. And I have a book called The New Man you might be interested in, by Dr. Maurice Nicole. He was a psychologist in the early 1900s, but he studied with a man named Gurdjieff. But I like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, JRR Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. I just read a George MacDonald book, and George MacDonald C.S. Lewis considered him his master. So there's fairy stories there, just the princess and the goblin, the princess and the curdy, because they teach us these mystical truths on a deep, deep level. But so you stay out of your mind. I went to a bunch of Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now. I took a bunch of his classes, but let me see if I have my journal or if I left it in the car. I left it in the car in my other bag. I wrote down the most amazing saying today. Maybe I'll get to put it in the description. All right, I'll just have it facing the ocean and the sunset for now while it's here. We read the preface before, and I usually don't read the preface, but it was so good. Evelyn Underhill just explained. This is called... So it's written in 1910. I won't show the cover of this book because this book, they published it later, but she originally published it in 1910, so it's free copyright. So you can find it on probably Project Gutenberg or somewhere online for free. I might have it in the descriptions. I haven't done the descriptions yet. It's called The Nature and Development of Spiritual Consciousness, Mysticism. All right, I have a mic. Sometimes I don't know if it's better or worse, but I think it'll be better because my back is to the wind right now and I have a wall behind me. There. All right. The preface to the first edition. Last time we read the preface to the 12th edition, but you can start here. This book falls naturally into 2 parts, each of which is really complete in itself, though they are in a sense complementary to one another. Whilst the second and the longest part contains a somewhat detailed study of the nature and development of man's spiritual or mystical consciousness, the first is intended rather to provide an introduction to the general subject of mysticism. I forgot. So I brought up JRR Tolkien and C.S. Lewis because I'm I know C.S. Lewis corresponded with Evelyn Underhill, this writer. She's a woman that studied mysticism and meditated for a good 40 years probably or more of her life. And so Lewis and Tolkien and Charles Williams were in a group called the Inklings, and that was in Oxford. And I know Charles Williams really highly respected Evelyn Underhill and wrote the preface to one of her books and much more. They all really helped each other in their school of thought that they were in. All right. Whilst the second and longest part contains a somewhat detailed study of the nature and development of man's spiritual or mystical consciousness, the first is intended rather to provide an introduction to the general subject of mysticism, exhibiting it by turns from the point of view of metaphysics, psychology, and symbolism. It is an attempt to gather between the covers of one volume information at present scattered amongst many monographs and textbooks written in diverse tongues, and to give the student in a compact form. This is a compact form. It's like either or. When Elliot Smith was a friend of mine, I was like, did you read this whole thing? It was 2 parts that was like this, Kierkegaard's either or. And he's like, he laughed at me. He's like, yeah, like it was going to be really hard to read a book. But he would read it like on tour and stuff like that too, or wherever. I don't know. He'd probably just, anyway, it's important to take time to listen to books and read books. But, okay, so she says, I won't keep interrupting. I am a psychologist, so sometimes I point out stuff that I understand from being a meditator and a contemplative in a way myself, and a psychologist for the last 22 years, plus the 9 years I went to school. One volume, information at present scattered amongst many monographs and textbooks written in diverse tongues, and to give the student in a compact form at least the elementary facts in regard to each of those subjects which are most closely connected with the study of the mystics. Those mystics, properly speaking, can only be studied in their works which are for the most part left unread by those who now talk much about mysticism. Did you get that? Those mystics, properly speaking, can only be studied in their works which are for the most part left unread by those who now talk much about mysticism. I love reading mystic books, but I'm so glad that we're into this so we can get the, her synopsis of the originals here. I love this on here. Okay, I don't know what's best. I guess it's like that. It's good. It's so much prettier right now, even than that, and I know that's gorgeous. Certainly the general reader has this excuse that the masterpieces of mystical literature, full of strange beauties though they be, offer considerable difficulties to those who come to them unprepared. In the first 7 chapters of this book, I have tried to remove a few of these difficulties, to provide the necessary preparation, and to exhibit the relation in which mysticism stands to other forms of life. If then the readers of this section are enabled by it to come to the encounter of mystical literature with a greater power of sympathetic comprehension than they previously possessed, it will have served the purpose for which it has been composed. So if you can approach mystical books after this with more comprehension and sympathetic comprehension and understanding that they're speaking deep, intimate truths to you, they're letting you into another realm that they worked really hard to get to. Surrendered really hard, I'll call it like that. You have to surrender really hard. It's not like trying, but anyway. It is probable that almost every such reader, according to the angle from which he approaches the subject, will here find a good deal which seems to him superfluous. But different types of mind will find this unnecessary elaboration in different places. So sometimes you'll find it unnecessary for the parts you understand, and then other times you'll find it totally necessary because you don't understand what she's talking about. But different types of mind will find, so the psychologist approaching from the scientific standpoint, eager for morbid phenomena. That is not me. I studied psychology as the study of the soul, psyche. Ology is the study of, and psyche is, but I know it is a science. So anyway, the scientific psychologist approaching this from a scientific standpoint, eager for morbid phenomena, has little use for the disquisitions of symbolism, religious or other. The symbolist approaching from the artistic standpoint seldom admires the proceedings of psychology. I believe, however, that none who wish to obtain an idea of mysticism in its wholeness as a form of life can afford to neglect any of the aspects on which these pages venture to touch. The metaphysician and the psychologist are unwise if they do not consider the light thrown upon the ideas of the mystics by their attitude towards orthodox theology. The theologian is still more unwise if he refuses to hear the evidence of psychology. For the benefit of those whose interest in mysticism is chiefly literary and who may care to be provided with a clue to the symbolic and allegorical element in the writings of the contemplatives, a short section on those symbols of which they most often make use has been added. Finally, the persistence amongst us of the false opinion which confuses mysticism with occult philosophy and psychic phenomena has made it necessary to deal with the vital distinction which exists between it and every form of magic. Yes! As the sun setting. That's what I want to understand, because there's so many people that go into the occult and magic and all of that, and they don't understand. You're meant to, like, Christ was a mystic. He walked on water. You know what I mean? Like, how do you bend your ideas of nature enough to be able to walk on water? Like, that's mysticism right there. That's faith. That's stepping into the unknown. And so a lot of people are just afraid of it and call it magic and write it all off as just make-believe. But I look forward to seeing what Evelyn Underhill teaches us. And there are certainly people that try to do things with magic and the occult. I'll see what she talks about it as the sun sets. Saw your eyes, made me. Oh, I just started singing what I was listening to before. I forgot I was with you guys. This is just me with the sunset. Oh, the clouds are all getting pink too. All right. I wish everyone watching this could just be here. All right. Specialists in any of these great departments of knowledge will probably be disgusted by the elementary and superficial manner in which their specific sciences here are treated. But this book does not venture to address itself to specialists. From those who are already full conversant with the matters touched upon, it asks the indulgence which really kind-hearted adults are always ready to extend towards the efforts of youth. Philosophers are earnestly advised to pass over the first 2 chapters, and theologians to practice the same charity in respect to the section dealing with their science. The giving of merely historical information is no part of the present plan, except insofar as chronology has a bearing upon the most fascinating of all histories, the history of the spirit of man. Many books upon mysticism have been based on the historical method, amongst them 2 such very different works as Vaughans, Vaughhans, Supercilious and Unworthy Hours with the Mystics. That's good to know. Don't look up that book then. And Dr. Ing's scholarly Bampton Lectures, Inge''s, Dr. Ing's Bampton Lectures. It is a method which seems to be open to some objections, since mysticism avowedly deals with the individual not as he stands in relation to the civilization of his time, but as he stands in relation to truths that are timeless. All mystics, said St. Martin, speak the same language and come from the same country. I love that. As against the fact, the place which they happen to occupy in the kingdom of this world matters little. Nevertheless, those who are unfamiliar with the history of mysticism, properly so called, and to whom the names of the great contemplatives convey no accurate suggestion of period or nationality, may be glad to have a short statement of their order in time and distribution in space. Also, some knowledge of the genealogy of mysticism is desirable if we are to distinguish the original contributions of each individual from the mass of speculation and statement which he inherits from the past. Those entirely unacquainted with these matters may find it helpful to glance at the appendix before proceeding to the body of the work, since few things are more disagreeable than the constant encounter of persons to whom we have not been introduced. That's like Dostoevsky's books. They all have like 1,000 names. I'm going to move my stuff out of the way of those bikes. Aw. I missed looking at it. I'll have to look at it in the video. I always watch the sunset here, though. I mean, I often do. Okay, hold on. I got a notification, even though I... All right. Okay. The second part of the book, for which the first 7 chapters are intended to provide a preparation, is avowedly psychological. It is an attempt to set out and justify a definite theory of the nature of man's mystical consciousness, the necessary stages of organic growth through which the typical mystic has... Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. I can't wait to read this. I don't remember if I've read this before. I don't think I have. I think I'll... I guess I don't want you guys to just have a brick wall, but maybe for a little bit. Oh, I'll do it this way. Oh, I'll get the ocean this way. Okay. All right, we're almost done with the preface and into the book. But I wanna hear, the stages of mysticism in a person's life. I'm sure that they're in the Holy Scriptures, in lots of different scriptures. But anyway. The second part of the book, for which the first 7 chapters are intended to provide preparation. Okay. A definite theory of nature of man's mystical consciousness, the necessary stages of organic growth through which the typical mystic passes, the states of equilibrium towards which he tends. She says he, she means he or she, because there's plenty of women. She's a woman mystic. Each of these stages, and also the characteristically mystical and still largely mysterious experiences of visions and voices, contemplation and ecstasy, though viewed from the standpoint of psychology, is illustrated from the lives of the mystics. And where possible, in their own words, in planning these chapters, I have been considerably helped by Madame? I don't know, it's just M. Delacroix's brilliant it's the word for study in French. Etudes sur S-U-R-L-E mysticism. Though unable to accept his to him, Monsieur. Oh, that's why, because it's French. It just says M. To accept his conclusions. So she says, though unable to accept his conclusions, and here gladly to take the opportunity of acknowledging my debt to him, and also to Baron von Hugel's classic Mystical Element of Religion. This book, I'm trying to cover the wind. This book, which only came into my hands when my own was planned and partly written, has since been a constant source of stimulus, constant source of stimulus and encouragement. Finally, it is perhaps well to say something as to the exact sense in which the term mysticism is here understood. One of the most one of the most abused words in the English language, it has been used in different and often mutually exclusive senses by religion, poetry, and philosophy. It has been claimed as an excuse for every kind of occultism, for dilute transcendentalism, vapid symbolism, religious or aesthetic sentimentality, and bad metaphysics. Go Evelyn, right? On the other hand, it has been freely employed as a term of contempt by those who have criticized these things. It is much to be hoped that it may be restored sooner or later to its old meaning. I love restoring words. I'm like this, to their true meaning, you know? You will know the truth will set you free. Like that's part of our vocation here, is to keep knowing the truth and applying it to our lives and learning how to be true and to be balanced, to be love, you know? Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's like the will of divine love, you know? All religions are teaching that, but, well, I mean, most all of them. So she says so we want to restore it, right? On the other hand, it's been freely employed as a term of contempt for those who have criticized these things. It is much to be hoped that it may be restored sooner or later to its old meaning as the science or art of the spiritual life. Okay? So there was a comma there. I thought it was a period. It says its old meaning as the science or art of the spiritual life. So the art of the spiritual life, if you take it that way, if you think of when it says the New Testament, it translated as you are God's workmanship, but the word in Greek is poema. You are God's poem. You're God's masterpiece. You're God's work of art, you know, created. I won't go on with that verse for right now, but you are a masterpiece. C.S. Lewis says that we wish we were just a daily sketch drawn by God, that he wouldn't keep working on it excuse me, so intently. You know, can you please stop working on me? Because oftentimes it's like a fire. Sorry, I got some water. Like a purifying fire, you know? And it does not feel good. Just like my workout right now. I wanted to quit. And I was like, nope, keep going. No excuses, keep going. You know? Exercise that body, keep breathing, you know? All right. So, meanwhile, those who use the term mysticism are bound in self-defense to explain that what they mean by it. Broadly speaking, I understand it to be the expression of the innate tendency of the human spirit towards complete harmony with the transcendental order. I'm going to read that again because that is incredible. If half the world understood what that sentence meant just now, like, the world would be 100% better place. There's birds right here, look. So meanwhile, those who use the term mysticism are bound in self-defense to explain what they mean by it. Broadly speaking, I understand it to be the expression of the innate tendency of the human spirit towards complete harmony with the transcendental order. Whatever be the theological formula under which that order is understood, this tendency in great mystics gradually captures the whole field of consciousness. It dominates their life, and in the experience called mystic union, attains its end, whether that end be called the God of Christianity, the world soul of pantheism, the absolute of philosophy, the desire to attain it, and the movement towards it, so long as this is a genuine life process and not an intellectual speculation, is the proper subject of mysticism. I believe this movement to represent the true line of development of the highest form of human consciousness. It is a pleasant duty. That's what I think too. I don't know what she's going to say next, but this is a pleasant duty. I feel like it is a duty, but I love to be here to do this for you all. It is a pleasant duty to offer my heartfelt thanks to many kind friends and fellow students of all shades of opinion who have given me their help and encouragement. Well, I appreciate that too. Amongst those to whom my heaviest debt of gratitude is due are Mr. W. Scott Palmer, for much valuable, generous, and painstaking assistance, particularly in respect to the chapter upon vitalism, and Miss Margaret Robinson, who, in addition to many other kind offices, has made all the translations from Meister Eckhart and Mieshild of Magdeburg here given. Sections of the MS have been kindly read by the Reverend Dr. Ing, by Miss May Sinclair, and by Miss Eleanor Gregory, from all of whom I have received much helpful and expert advice. To Mr. Arthur Simmons, my thanks and those of my readers are specially due, since it is owing to his generous permission that I am able to make full use of the beautiful translations of the poems of St. John of the Cross. Amazing. Amazing. St. John of the Cross is just amazing. And if she had a good translation, I want to look for it in the appendix. Others who have given me much help in various directions and to whom most grateful acknowledgments are here offered: Miss Constance Jones, Miss Ethel Barker, Mr. J.A. Herbert, and the British Museum, who first brought to my notice the newly discovered Mirror of Simple Souls, the Reverend Dr. Hold on. I don't want it to get cut off because of copyright, so I'm covering it for that guy's song. Maybe they'll look just because I said that, but whatever. I'm protecting. All right. The substance of 2 chapters thereupon. By Dr. Okay, so the Mirror of Simple Souls. There's a couple more sentences of Reverend Dr. Arbuthnot Nairn, Mr. A.E. Waite, and Mr. H. Stuart Moore, FSA. The substance of 2 chapters, those upon the characteristics of mysticism and magic, has already appeared in the pages of The Quest and the Fortnightly Review. These sections are here reprinted by kind permission of their respective editors. So she had already written that. This is, she said she wrote this on the Feast of St. John of the Cross, 1910. I really love him. He's helped me through a lot of difficult times. John, the Beloved, and St. John of the Cross, and Teresa of Avila. And many, many mystics. Eliot helped me for sure, and I kind of look at Van Gogh as a mystic, but he didn't have definition for it. All right, part 1, the mystic fact. Oh, I did read this part, okay. So, here's a quote at the beginning. It says, "What the world, which truly knows nothing, calls mysticism is the science of ultimates, the science of self-evident reality, which cannot be reasoned about because it is the subject of pure reason or perception. The babe suckling its mother's breast and the lover returning after 20 years' separation to his home and food in the same bosom are the types and princes of mystics." Prince, like a prince, like a king and queen and their son, the prince, daughter, the princess. But this is by Coventry Patmore. The Rod, the Root, and the Flower is the name of the book. Coventry. They met Coventry. Mysticism, Chapter 1. The point of departure. The mystic type, its persistence. Okay, so this is what's in here. She's just giving little phrases for what's in here. The mystic type, its persistence, man's quest of truth, the mystic's claim to have attained it, the foundations of experience, the self, its sensations, its concepts, the sense world, its unreal character, philosophy, its classic theories of reality, naturalism, its failures, idealism, its limitations, philosophic skepticism, the logical end of intellectualism, failure of philosophy and science to discover reality, emotional and spiritual experience, its validity, religion, suffering, beauty, their mystical aspects, mysticism as the science of the real, its statements, its practice, its claims. It claims direct communion with the absolute. Okay, so that's a lot. I wish we all knew all of that to like the perfect amount right now already, but that's why we're here. The most highly developed branches of the human family have in common one peculiar characteristic. They tend to produce sporadically, it is true, and often in the teeth of adverse external circumstances, a curious and definite type of personality, a type which refuses to be satisfied with that which other men call experience, and is inclined, in the words of its enemies, to, quote, deny the world in order that it may find reality. I'm going to show, I guess it looks the same right now. I'll show you a peek of the other way, where the sun was. Okay, I'll show it that way for a little bit. The glow of the sun is in the camera, but I don't see it with my eye. We meet these persons in the East and the West, in the ancient, medieval, and modern worlds. Their one passion appears to be the prosecution of certain spiritual and intangible quests, the finding of a way out or a way back to some desirable state in which alone they can satisfy their craving for absolute truth. This quest for them has constituted the whole meaning of life. They have made for it without effort sacrifices which have appeared enormous to other men, and it is an indirect testimony to its objective actuality that whatever the place or period in which they have arisen, their aims, doctrines, and methods have been substantially the same. Their experience therefore forms a body of evidence, curiously self-consistent and often mutually explanatory, which must be taken into account before we can add up the sum of the energies and potentialities of the human spirit, or reasonably speculate on its relations to the unknown world which lies outside of the boundaries of sense. So this is going to go beyond your sense perception. You can't recognize. I mean, it's so much cooler to see the whole horizon. Let's see. All men at one time or another have fallen in love with the veiled Isis whom they call truth. With most, this has been a passing passion. They have early seen its hopelessness and turned to more practical things, but others remain all their lives the devout lovers of reality. Though the manner of their love, the vision which they make to themselves of the beloved object varies enormously. Some see truth as Dante saw Beatrice, an adorable yet intangible figure found in this world, yet revealing the next. You know, like the beatific vision. Some see truth as Dante saw Beatrice, an adorable yet intangible figure found in this world, yet revealing the next. To others she seems rather an evil but an irresistible enchantress, enticing, demanding payment, and betraying her lover at the last. Some have seen her in a test tube, and some in a poet's dream. Some before the altar, others in the slime. The extreme pragmatists have even sought her in the kitchen, declaring that she may best be recognized by her utility. Last stage of all, the philosophic skeptic has comforted an unsuccessful courtship by assuring himself that his mistress is not really there. I love that, the extreme pragmatist. Nope, not there. Under whatsoever symbols they have... I'm gonna look at this for a second. It's so cool, look, all these people. Getting pictures. Under whatsoever symbols they have objectified their quest, none of these seekers have ever been able to assure the world that they have found, seen face to face, the reality behind the veil. It's a capital R for reality. But if we may trust the reports of the mystics, and they are reports given with a strange accent and certainty and good faith, they have succeeded where all those others have failed, in establishing immediate communication between the spirit of man entangled, as they declare, amongst material things, and that only reality, that immaterial and final being, which some philosophers call the Absolute, and most theologians call God. This they say, and here many who are not mystics agree with them, is the hidden truth, which is the object of man's craving, the only satisfying goal of his quest. Hence, they should claim from us the same attention that we give to other explorers of countries in which we are not competent to adventure ourselves. I have that underlined in this book, right? Hence, they should claim from us the satisfying goal of his hence, they should claim from us the same attention that we give to other explorers of countries in which we are not competent to adventure ourselves. For the mystics are the pioneers of the spiritual world. And we have no right to deny validity to their discoveries, merely because we lack the opportunity or the courage necessary to those who would prosecute such explorations for themselves. I had a good friend that I love ask me, like, are you sure you want to be reading those books on your channel, on your YouTube channel or Instagram or wherever, you know? And I was like, yeah, I just get them by intuition, and I know how much they've helped me through the worst of times and the best of times. So I just have a knowing that this will help us, and I trust that. And like, maybe just because I trust it, it'll be so, you know? Thank you for coming along and trusting with me. I appreciate your presence. It's nice to know other people care about this. And, you know, I think I have a quote from Lewis Carroll in my house on like a dish towel. It says, you know, we're a little mad, but all the good ones are, you know? Like, a bit of a one-off. That's how Nigel said it, Nigel Goodwin. He's a bit of a one-off. Charlie, he said that about Charlie. Charlie Maxey, who this was 20 years ago he said that, and whose like book is like #1 on Amazon, who's having a movie made from one of his books, one of my friends from a long time ago, more than 20 years ago. That's why I liked him. That's why the world likes him now. It just took 20 years, you know. He's a bit of a one-off, you know. But he has a deep sensitivity and a kindness about him. And then we all have our goofiness. That's how I heard it from someone else. Anyway. It is the object of this book to attempt a description, and also, though this is needless for those who read that description in good faith, you know, if you read the description in good faith, a justification of those experiences and the conclusions which have been drawn from them. So remote, however, are these matters from our ordinary habits of thought, that their investigation entails in those who would attempt to understand them a definite preparation, a purging of the intellect. You have to purge your intellect to get to this place. It doesn't mean you have to be cuckoo. It's not that at all. It's just letting go of the mind. The mind has limitations, just like a piano can't make the same music that a violin can. You have to set the piano down to play the violin, right? The mind is an instrument, but you are consciousness, your soul in a body. You have so much more accessibility to the divine, to all the other realm, you know. I like how Jesus said, seek first the kingdom of God, and the kingdom of God is within you. Like, where? You know, are you going to, like, look? You know, if a surgeon cut it open, they're not going to find it in your heart. It's within, because within is you are consciousness in this body. But that's just a limited definition. Now, we might have to go on a little adventure right now, because as bright as it looks out here, it's getting dark on the pages. So I'll go to purging of the intellect. As with those who came of old to the mysteries, purification is here the gate of knowledge. We must come to this encounter with minds cleared of prejudice and convention. We must deliberately break with our inveterate habit of taking the, quote, visible world for granted. Our lazy assumption that somehow science is, quote, real and metaphysics is not. We must pull down our own card houses, descend, as the mystics say, into our nothingness, and examine for ourselves the foundations of all possible human experience before we are in a position to criticize the buildings of the visionaries, the poets, and the saints. We must not begin to talk of the unreal world of these dreamers until we have discovered, if we can, a real world with which it may be compared. All right, I'm going to keep reading, so don't leave yet. I still have 26, 36, about 20 more minutes of reading, but I didn't know when I didn't check when the sun was going to go down. I just wanted to start getting this filmed. So you're going to have a bit of like a 1 minute skate with me once I put all this in here, because I don't want to skate and carry all this other stuff. What is that? All right. So I'll tell you a little story that happened today on our little jaunt to the car. I'm parked right by here, so it's not one of those beach walks that's like, and plus we're skating, so we'll get there in a second. So I was talking to my brother today. My older brother studies all of this stuff. I love him. I don't know how I would have lived my life without my older brother. We were talking. I was asking him about the meaning of life again, you know, and like, why do we feel off balanced? And he was talking about the eightfold path that the Buddha would talk about, and he talked about. I'm like, I thought the Buddha was like, you know, like being all austere and not you know, like not eating and fasting and doing all these things so that he could get enlightened, and finally when he let it go, he became enlightened. And because the word Buddha means awakened, right? And he was like, no, he didn't let all of it go. He just let go of, it's basically, I'll translate what we were talking about. He said, he basically let go of the egotisms, trying to get it. This is what a mistake in religion oftentimes, you know, and I understand this one too. I've been there. I'm not saying I'm not there now. I hope to God I'm not. But, you know, okay. so I have a standstill, but you got to see these light up. All right. All right, goodbye to the sunrise and the sunset in the ocean. So I'm skating with my phone on a stand. It's really funny, but I guess I could take it out. Anyway, so we were talking about the Buddha and awaken and how, oh, I thought he had given up all of those things and then he became enlightened because he finally let go. No, he let go of trying to get an outcome. If you keep insisting the answer is out there, then the universe will reflect back to you, it's out there. You know what I mean? Because that's what you keep insisting is the truth. When Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within, he's pointing us in the right direction at least, so you don't keep searching out there. If I keep wanting, keep buying the lottery and I keep saying it's out there, something like that, I'm chasing something, even if I want it. The thing I'm looking for, I keep thinking is outside of me. Wow, I'm getting downloads right now as I'm saying this, right? And so it's so funny because it reminded me of that last sentence. Not the last sentence, but about 3 sentences ago in the book, right? I gotta look where I'm going. I'm going down this hill. Because my brother, he's like, okay, I have to go. He's like, I have to go, and he hung up. And we were in a really good part, but it was a pause, and he had just made a really profound point. And he was just like, he texted me right after. He's like, sorry, I wanted to compliment my wife on something, because she had just made him something. She's so sweet, right? And he also said, plus we were at that was such a high point of the conversation. He's like, we had to end it on that. He's like, but I could talk about this topic for 4 hours, so call me another time. And it's so funny. So I plan to, not tonight, because he has a later time zone, but call him. Okay, so where we're going right now is, we could go under that palm tree, under that light, but that's someone else's house. So I revert back to my car and just turn on the lights in here and keep going, because part of what I've understood in my own mystic path or contemplative path is just you use what you have. And if people want it fancy, then I've already turned them off by my channel. I love it. I hope I never get a whole studio crew. I don't want to manifest that. If I need a studio crew, maybe if that will get to more people, then maybe so. But I like right now that it's just lo-fi. I'm into lo-fi. All right. Okay. So, back to the book. I still have my mic on. I hope you can hear. I had to adjust the volume on one of my other videos. Now I need my case because my case hangs on my steering wheel, but all right, I guess I'll just hold it because I only have 20 more minutes. All right, let's get the lights on so I can read. Just use any of these pauses to be really present. You can feel yourself in your body, and it helps you. It helps you purge your mind, drop down out of your mind into your heart space. All right. Oh, good. That's a pretty view still. Oh, but you see my reflection. That's funny. Saw your reflection. All right. I was gonna say if that didn't work, I would edit that out, but because I already have to put. Anyway, okay. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed that little break. Get some water or something. So, yeah, I at the purging of the intellect sentence, I was like, yeah, we ought to just end on that, but okay. Such a criticism, okay, that's where we were, but it says, I'm just going to read that last sentence again. We could read that 1,000 times and it wouldn't be enough. We must pull down our own card houses, descend, as the mystics say, into our nothingness, and examine for ourselves the foundations of all possible human experience, before we are in a position to criticize the buildings of the visionaries, the poets, and the saints. We must not begin to talk of the unreal world of these dreamers until we have discovered, if we can, a real world with which it may be compared. Such criticism of reality is, of course, the business of philosophy. I need hardly say that this book is not written by a philosopher, nor is it addressed to students of that imperial science. Nevertheless, amateurs though we be, we cannot reach our starting point without trespassing to some extent on philosophic ground. The ground covers the whole area of first principles. And it is to first principles that we must go. You understand, remember, Plato talked about first principles. Anyway, wait, I've got to wipe my nose because that last sentence before I got up was making me cry. It was making me tear up. It was so beautiful. It was so profound. All right. That ground covers the whole area of first principles. And it is to first principles that we must go if we would understand the true significance of the mystic type. Let us then begin at the beginning and remind ourselves of a few of the trite and primary facts which all practical persons agree to ignore. That beginning for human thought is, of course, the I, the ego. She has a capital E-G-O. The self-conscious subject which is writing this book, or the other self-conscious subject which is reading it, and which declares, in the teeth of all arguments, I am. Here, and it's capital I-A-M, two different words. Here is a point as to which we all feel quite sure. No metaphysician has yet shaken the ordinary individual's belief in his own existence. The uncertainties only begin for most of us when we ask what else is? What else is besides I am, To this I, this conscious self, imprisoned in the body like an oyster in his shell, come, as we know, a constant stream of messages and experiences. We know, constant messages and experiences. Chief amongst these are the stimulation of the tactile nerves, whose result we call touch, the vibrations taken up by the optic nerve, which we call light, and those taken up by the ear and perceived as sound. What do these experiences mean? The first answer of the unsophisticated self, she has a capital S, is that they indicate the nature of the external world. It is to the, quote, evidence of her senses that she turns when she is asked what the world is like. From the messages received through these senses, which point in her, whether she will or no, battering upon her gateways at every instant and from every side, she constructs that, quote, sense world, end quote, which is the, quote, real and solid world of normal men. As the impressions come in, or rather those interpretations of the original impressions, which her nervous system supplies, she pounces on them, much as players in the spelling game pounce on the separate letters dealt. So she has down here in the footnotes, even this I am, which has seemed, wait, hold on, let me finish that, which on the separate letters, much as the players in the spelling game pounce on the separate letters dealt out to them. she sorts, accepts, rejects, and combines, and then triumphantly produces from them a concept which is, she says, the external world. With an enviable and amazing simplicity, she attributes her own sensations to the unknown universe. The stars, she says, are bright. The grass is green. For her, as for the philosopher Hume, reality consists in impressions and ideas. All right, so she says about the I am. Even this I am, which has seemed safe ground to most metaphysicians, is of course combated by certain schools of philosophy. The word sum, S-U-M, said Eckhart, Meister Eckhart, not Eckhart Tolle, Meister Eckhart, the German mystic, which Eckhart Tolle got his name from. He picked his name from Meister Eckhart. The word sum, said Eckhart long ago, can be spoken by no creature but God only, for it becomes the creature to testify of itself. Non-sum, N-O-N-S-U-M, that's Latin, I think. In a less mystical strain, Lotze, L-O-T-Z-E, and after him Bradley and other modern writers have devoted much destructive criticism to the concept of the ego as the starting point of philosophy, looking upon it as a large and logically unwarrantable assumption. And then there's a quote from Plato. And where did I write this from? I have a quote. It says, "You see the cosmic mass. We dance within the cosmos." I don't think we read that yet, but maybe it's on the next page and I just wanted a place to write it. Anyway, it is immediately apparent, however, that this sense world, we're back to the sense world, this seeming real external universe, though it may be useful and valid in other respects, cannot be the external world, but only the self's projected picture of it. It is a work of art, not a scientific fact, and whilst it may well possess the profound significance proper to great works of art, is dangerous if treated as a subject of analysis, like great works of art, Very slight investigation shows that it is a picture whose relation to reality is at best symbolic and approximate, and which would have no meaning for selves whose senses or channels of communication happen to be arranged upon a different plan. The evidence of the senses, then, cannot be accepted as evidence of the nature of ultimate reality. Useful servants, they are dangerous guides. Just like what I was talking about earlier. Useful servants, they are dangerous guides, as with your mind, Nor can their testimony, but don't just take my word for it, study all this and test it. Nor can their testimony disconcert those seekers whose reports they appear to contradict. The conscious self sits, so to speak, at the receiving end of a telegraph wire. On any other theory than that of mysticism, it is her one channel of communication with the hypothetical, quote, external world, end quote. The receiving instrument registers certain messages she does not know, and so long as she remains dependent on that instrument, never can know the object, the reality at the other end of the wire by which these messages are sent. Neither can the messages truly disclose the nature of that object, but she is justified on the whole in accepting them as evidence that something exists beyond herself and her receiving instrument. This is probably before phones. I don't remember when phones were, but this is this telegraph when she was writing. It is obvious that the structural peculiarities of the telegraphic instrument will have exerted a modifying effect upon the message. That which is conveyed as dash and dot, color and shape, may have been received in a very different form. Therefore, this message, though it may in a partial sense be relevant to the supposed reality at the other end, can never be adequate to it. There will be fine vibrations which it fails to take up, others which it confuses together. Hence, a portion of the message is always lost, or in other language, like in another language, there are aspects of the world which we can never know. I had someone ask me the other day, can you send that to me in voice messages instead of in text? Because I guess he didn't want to understand what the texts were, like try to read between the lines or something. I was like, okay. Thus Eckhart, this is in the footnotes again. Thus Eckhart, every time that he wrote, I love Eckhart, Meister Eckhart, so I'm gonna read this footnote. I might not read all the footnotes. He says, every time that the powers of the soul come into contact with created things, they receive let me see what this word is. I think it's the word create, but it may be something else. It looks like create, but it's in cursive or something, so that's why images and likenesses from the created thing and absorb them. Okay, every time that the powers of the soul come into contact with created things, they receive the create images and likenesses from the created thing and absorb them. In this way arises the soul's knowledge of the created things. Period. Created things cannot come nearer to the soul than this, and the soul can only approach created things by the voluntary reception of images. And it is through the presence of the image that the soul approaches the created world. For the image of a thing, which the soul creates with her own powers, and it is through the presence of the image that the soul approaches the created world. For the image is a thing which the soul creates with her own powers. Does the soul want to know the nature of a stone, a horse, a man? She forms an image. That's Meister Eckhart from Mystische Schriften. I don't know how to translate that from German, but Mystische sounds like mysticism. Oh, I turned this. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Let me see. I try to keep these to an hour. It's just so people can set aside an hour of time. Okay, we're on page 7 of this, and it's chapter 1, the point of departure. And I have a bookmark here, so hopefully I'll remember. I can make a mark. All right, much love. Thank you so much for being here. Share, comment, like, subscribe so you get notified when I upload stuff. Just watch the videos that resonate with you, and you won't, some of the videos you won't know until you watch them 3 times if they speak something. They're putting seeds in to grow something deeper within you. That's what I see my videos are, because I'll watch them and I'll be like, oh, I learned so much from this, the 4th time I watched it. All right, so much love. Mwah.